and welcome. It's our first Confessions podcast of the year, and because it's been a funny week, with no one knowing really what kind of day it is, New Year, All Request Tuesday, now All Request Friday, a slightly shorter podcast for you. No expense has been spared on quality because it's a couple of belters. So a very concise collection of terrible tales includes A Roadie's Revenge and A Cunning Cuisine Conundrum. See, we're as good as ever. Who will you forgive? Here they come. This is Radio 2. Drive Time is back. The full team, the collective, is herein assembled, looking fantastic, slim, gorgeous, terrific. Sister Rebecca, Mother Superior, is back and reclining in her New Year casuals. And Brother Matt is here and ready to go. What?
Nothing.
Well, you looked all...
I was a bit flustered.
Argumentative there.
Did I? Oh, that's just my normal voice.
Get your confessions in as soon as you can, please. We've got a good selection ready to go, and you can confess online. You can send us an email, confessions@bbc.co.uk. It may well be there's something happened over the Christmas and New Year period that you need to tell us about. This from Emma. Dear Father Simon and the Creative Collective, my confession harks back 12 years ago when I was but a whippersnapper in my late teens. This time I was working backstage at a theatre as a techie. I was the only female in a team of about 15. As a rather petite woman making her way in a very male-dominated world, I was regularly ridiculed by visiting stage crews. I regularly received comments such as, "You can't lift that, you're a girl," and "Lasses shouldn't be doing a man's work," that kind of thing. Consequently, I was constantly on the defensive when anyone made a comment regarding my gender, and this quickly became a standing joke within the crew that I regularly worked with. Every January, the theatre would put on a show for a well-known, foul-mouthed, sexist performer. I think that's okay. And on this particular occasion, I was working on the show. I was informed that the funny man was as rude off stage as he was on stage, but knowing that I would have the support of my team and it was only a one-off, I decided it would be okay. With hindsight, I should have said no. The fateful day arrived and we started to get in and fit up. Things seemed to be going well and we were all having a good laugh. A couple of hours before the show, whilst in the process of doing the sound check and the final preparations, the performer arrived. He stood on the stage surveying the scene and stated loudly that he wanted a cup of tea. Presuming he was talking to one of his entourage, we all continued doing our work and checking the scenery and lighting. A moment later, he said into the microphone, "Oi, wench, didn't you hear me? Get me a cup of tea."
This is going to end well for him, obviously.
I think I know who this is.
I think I know who it is. I've taken out some of the descriptive elements of this as well. At this point, my stage manager had to nudge me to let me know that the comedian was actually addressing me. I put my tools down, turned and politely explained to him where his dressing room was, which was fully equipped with beverage-making facilities. I was rather impressed with myself for keeping my cool after being spoken to in such a way. I thought that my charming manner and clear instructions may have solved the problem, but it was not so. The performer responded by simply bawling insults at me and reiterating his request for tea. I was getting a little flustered by this point, but in a very calm fashion explained that I was rather busy making sure that his show was ready to open on time and that I really didn't have time to make him a drink. He chose to ignore this. As you can imagine, Father Simon, my blood was beginning to boil. I was utterly exasperated by his attitude. My stage manager seemed to sense my annoyance and took me to one side immediately. Thinking he was going to try and calm me down and defuse the situation, I followed him to the wings, breathing out a deep sigh of pent-up anger as I went. What he actually did was to ask me to go and make the obnoxious man a cup of tea, just to keep the peace. I was fuming. I very reluctantly went backstage to the urn and with very little attention made a cup of very average tea. I might have used curdled milk and 8 sugars, but I forget. As I headed back onto the stage, grumbling to myself about the injustice of it all, a plan formed. As I was walking through the wings, I'd noticed several loose cables on the floor which had not yet been taped down. These loose cables were laid in my pathway just a few feet in front of the performer. A cartoon-style image formed in my mind, and before I could rationalise this thought, accidentally on purpose, I tripped over the cable, sending the tea flying everywhere. For that split second, it seemed as though time had stood still, although the liquid hadn't. The tea moved through the air, heading straight for the performer's trousers, an important part of his costume, you should know. Time unfroze, the tea made a huge splash, the funny man's shoes were soaked, his prized trousers had suddenly acquired an expensive and expanding brown stain, and the whole crew had turned to look. For a few moments, no one said anything. Breaths were held and all eyes were on the trousers. Then suddenly, a tirade of insults and expletives were hurled from the performer's mouth, all aimed directly at me. I picked myself up off the stage and was ushered away very quickly by the stage manager. Was that a smirk on my face? Surely not. I was put on an early break whilst apologies were made and things smoothed over. Upon my return, I was half-heartedly reprimanded for my clumsiness and put on cleaning duties so as not to get in the performer's way. The show went on without a hitch and I never had to see the funny man again. So, Father Simon, I'm at the mercy of the collective. I do not seek forgiveness from the performer, as I still believe that he deserved what he got. But I do ask for forgiveness from my old team. They were the ones who had to fix the mess that I had made and put up with his foul mood for the rest of the night. They're also the ones who are reminded of the incident year after year whenever the funny man returns to do a show, which he does. Yours innocently, Emma. Well, as you correctly said, Brother Matthew, there was justice heading his way as soon as he said, "Oi, wench," and justice in the shape of a flying cup of tea. What do you think, Sister Rebecca?
An amazing tale that was. I think she's a very brave woman, actually, to take a revenge in that way. It was clever because, she couldn't do it intentionally, obviously intentionally. So, it was a good move. I actually blame the stage manager for him telling her to make a cup of tea, and also her team didn't really support her by the sounds of things. So I think you're absolutely fine. I completely forgive you, Emma, and I don't think you should need forgiveness from your team because they didn't help you.
What do you think, Mother Superior?
Well, I've been an assistant stage manager in my time, and I know that it's a very busy and complex job, and you do need help and you do need support, but we don't like people. I think I really know who this is. I really do. And I think that actually I would have probably done something much worse if I'd have been called an old wench, which I'm sure you've called me.
It wasn't old wench, it was oi wench.
Oh.
No, that makes much difference.
No, it doesn't. No, you just don't do that.
You don't,
Mr.
no.
Performer. So I think it was completely justified. I would have done worse myself. So you're totally forgiven.
I guess the stage manager just had to make sure that the show happened, and so therefore, if he thought the performer was going to sort of walk off in a huff, then everyone would have been for the high jump.
Well, yeah, but OK, let him walk.
Well, he could have got someone else to make the tea.
Exactly.
What do you say, Brother Matthew?
Seeing as we've all now worked out who this is, and there was one point in the story where it became clear who this is, I'd have definitely let him walk. No interest in seeing him
I don't think we
at
made
all.
it that.
Really?
Yeah, no.
OK, well, I'll tell you this. Stage manager, no backbone at all. What are you doing? You've got to stand up to the turn, pal, as I believe they say in theatre circles. So,
right?
yes, absolutely. So I am definitely... We're all going to obviously forgive you, because we can't stand this particular performer.
Whoever it is, I think...
Whoever it is.
It was left
we all know who it
fantastically
is.
vague. People's verdict. The young lady, Simon, was polite and restrained and oh so clever. Wish more people took revenge so sweetly when treated so disrespectfully. And in Southport, thank you. On behalf of all female roadies, Emma, I salute you. I work in the same industry and am faced with similar situations on a fairly regular basis. For all the times I wish I'd had the guts or opportunity to do similar, I thank you. Totally forgiven.
Well done.
We could do some roadie confessions, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Roadie confessions would be very good. Confessions@bbc.co.uk. Simon, nothing to forgive. Whoever he was, he sounds like he had it coming. I hope the young techie got her big break and went on to bigger and better things. Matt and Ballycastle, thank you very much. Simon and the crew, Emma is definitely forgiven. The stage manager should have made the tea. Not doing that bit. Emma is a girl after my own heart. Stand up to the chauvinist. Leslie and Luton, thank you very much. People's verdict, fabulous New Year confession. Totally stupendous, funny. I loved it. I'm sure I would also have made a second cuppa. And I've launched that at the stage manager at the same time. Thank you very much indeed.
This programme's getting too intelligent for me.
Never mind. Well, we'll bring it right down again then with tonight's Drive Time Confession. And here it comes. This one is from Dan. Dan, thank you very much indeed for tonight's tale. Don't forget, the archive is up online. You can have a look at all the confessions. There's a confessions podcast which becomes available every Friday. This will be included. Father Simon and the Aromatic Collective.
Oh, I say.
Which you haven't been called
Definitely.
before.
Does that mean we smell?
Smell pleasantly.
Oh, that's all right.
My confession takes me back a few years, quite a few years actually, to the early 1970s, when I worked for a small advertising agency in the city. Although my official job was making posters look nice, I was basically the office dog's body, and not a very well paid one at that. My role was to assemble advertising materials by hand, glue or paste them onto boards, ready to be photographed for printing. It was exacting work, but also very tedious, extremely boring. I was rather impoverished in those days, living off ham sandwiches and a packet of salt and shake crisps. And when the bosses and their glamorous secretaries went off to the pub at lunchtime, usually for much longer than the regulatory hour, I would stay behind, manning the phones, all alone in the office. On the end of the row of Georgian-style offices where the agency was, stood a big new tower block belonging to a swanky firm who dealt in numbers. We should just leave it at that. On the rare occasion that I did manage to go out for some fresh air at lunchtime, I was always assailed by the mouth-watering smell of cooked food wafting down from their staff canteen, which was on the top floor. It just so happened that I travelled into work with some employees of this global corporation, and I'd noticed the discreet little badges that they wore on their shirts to gain access to the building, and subsequently the canteen. Somehow my stomach made the leap that these badges could be easily replicated with a little effort, and I had the skill and materials to hand at my office. I'd soon made myself a facsimile badge, which I thought looked pretty convincing, and decided to put it to the test. Security at the building was not particularly strict, and so on this particular lunchtime I got in fairly easily. The agency dress code was collar and tie, so I looked almost identical to the company's employees. There were several satellite offices owned by the same corporation nearby, so personnel came and went quite regularly. Clutching a plain brown folder with my head held high, in I went, through the foyer and up the lift to the top floor. I joined the line with my tray, selected a very hearty meal, and sat down for the best lunch I'd had in ages. Having proved it possible, I enjoyed the hospitality of the company 2 or 3 times a week for 4 years.
Wow. Good effort.
The canteen cook soon got to know that they had an avid admirer, and double helpings became normal to build me up. They even kept things that they knew I liked under the counter for me, and I began to put on a little bit of weight. Though I tried to sit at a table by myself each time, I found that I saw the same people most lunches, and we ended up sitting together. This did get a little scary because I was really winging it, starting conversations usually with, "Oh, let's not talk shop," and moving on to the plans that I had that evening or what I'd got up to at the weekend. I must have become a little blasé over the years with my lunchtimes, as the new office junior at our place had become suspicious of my disappearances and was keeping a close eye on me. One day I returned to the advertising agency, having enjoyed a rather large plate of sausage, mash, gravy and greens, with my fake badge still on my shirt. I had completely forgotten to remove it. Junior had ambition, you see, and was a bit of a sneak, so took great pleasure in reporting my lunchtime naughtiness to the bosses. I was let go shortly after this and went on to pursue a different career which actually paid just a little better. The toadying office junior stayed with the agency for 30 years, eventually becoming one of the bosses himself. But, Father Simon, in the assembled entourage, I need forgiveness from the swanky global company where I ate free of charge for almost 4 years, and from the employees who treated me as an equal and a friend without ever realising that I had nothing to do with their corporation at all. Well, he showed initiative, but clearly he'd done a bad thing, don't you think, Sister Rebecca?
I mean, yeah, officially it was a very bad thing. I mean, he shouldn't have done it. No. I mean, but I thought it showed guts, actually, yes, and initiative. I mean, you'd never get away with that these days, would you, with all the security and everything in
just
offices?
Just a little cardboard badge.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you'd need a dongle these days. But I think the office junior was very mean, wasn't he? I mean, horrible. It's a difficult one because, yeah, he shouldn't really... I mean, it was officially stealing. On the other hand, such a large company. I know that's not a moral argument. I know. So yeah, because my kids will be listening, I'm going to have to not forgive, aren't I? Yeah. Sorry, Dan, you're not forgiven.
Okay.
This is really easy for me. This is really easy. The choice between a fairly rubbish job and free food for 4 years. That or the sack, I know what I'd do. I'd go for free lunches for 4 years.
Is that what you'd do?
And if you get the sack at the end of it, then, so you completely and utterly, obviously a massive corporation with lots of money, your little lunch wouldn't have made a little dent in their profits. So you're totally forgiven.
I'll tell you who the firm is in just a moment.
Okay.
Once Taylor Swift has started singing.
Oh, really?
Brother Matt with a bit of class.
4 years. Well done. Managing to keep it to yourself for 4 years. That's superb. I came up with a very, not completely similar ruse when I worked for an oil company in France. And we weren't supposed to... Yeah, I wasn't supposed to be eating in their restaurant. And they made really good food. And so I would go in and pretend to be with the guy from accounts or whatever, and so I would get there, and it was really, really nice food. But once I worked out what the ruse was, I basically told everyone. So everyone tried it, and then they stopped doing it. So I ruined it for everyone.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So in that case, I'm definitely going to forgive. Could you manage to keep it to yourself for 4 years? Well done, sir.
that was that. Who do you forgive? Let us know. And send us your own confession. confessions@bbc.co.uk. Or you can send one via the website bbc.co.uk/radio2. You look for the drive time pages. It's all there. We'll have another full-length podcast for you next Friday. Have a sin-free and joyful weekend. Thank you.